dopamine plays a major role in the development of tolerance and addiction. When you develop a high tolerance for a substance, dopamine is critical in creating the urge to always want that substance. This will push you to a point where you'll need to use more of the substance to feel the same level of effect you are used to. No matter the level of addiction you or your loved one may have developed or inherited, starting treatment early will go a long way to help your overall well-being. In the past, addiction was commonly identified as a habitual non-medical self-administration of a substance. But that's really incomplete. Addiction is a chronic and progressive brain disease frequently marked by episodes of relapse. And hey, substances aren't the only addictions out there. There are also behavioral addictions like gambling, sex, gaming, and more. These are called process addictions. But whether substance or behavior, at the core of all addictions is the fact that despite negative consequences or the potential for them, an addict is compelled to return to the substance or behavior over and over, with more frequency and more quantity. And why do we seek them? Because most addictive substances or behaviors are chased after to cause an increase of dopamine levels in your brain. So yes, it's quite literally and very chemically all in your head. Dopamine and addiction are often talked about together when it comes to health, psychology, and general issues affecting our mental well-being. At its core, addiction is the compulsive return to substances or activities that boost the release of dopamine neurotransmitters in the brain. And it's important to note that addiction is both a chronic and very progressive brain disease that plays havoc with brain chemistry and function. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, a special chemical made by nerve cells in your brain called neurons. Think of them as information supertransporters, a sort of rocket train in your brain. They are used to communicate messages across the different parts of your brain and also between your brain and the rest of your body. Dopamine on its own does not cause addiction. When it comes to addiction, both biological, genetics, and environmental influences, exposure, are involved. But dopamine plays a very big role in activating and maintaining addiction. From the beginning of the video to this point, we have been talking about dopamine, but there hasn't been a clear definition of dopamine. So, here we go. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter released when the brain expects a reward. This is the same place where motivation and other motor functions, that is, body movements, are regulated. Aside from that, dopamine is also involved in your blood flow, digestion, sleep, kidney function, how you process pain, and your stress response. Dopamine isn't good or bad on its own. It's about having a healthy level. Too little water and you become dehydrated. Too much water and you drown. It's about levels. Sure, we all want to have a healthy dopamine level. Dopamine helps our brain to perform and also repeat behaviors that make us feel good. And who doesn't want to feel good? And here's the amazing part. Just anticipating the performance of a pleasurable activity can release dopamine. This means that before you sink your teeth into that amazing fresh-baked slice of pie, you already started to feel good. It's also why an alcoholic already begins to feel a little better just pulling into the parking lot of the liquor store, even before they've had a drink. How is this even possible? Because the release of dopamine involves a cycle of motivation followed by reinforcement. And there are all kinds of ways this cycle gets kicked off besides just drugs or alcohol. Online shopping, chocolate cake, exercising, having sex, listening to music, video gaming, and pretty much anything else you get pleasure from doing. And pleasure isn't a bad thing, but dependence on something to feel good, and eventually just to feel normal, is a real problem. Even though you can't really get addicted to dopamine per se, you can most definitely get addicted to activities that boost your dopamine. Everybody has a particular activity they find pleasure in. That is, everybody. Once the person acts on that urge and performs the activity, the reward center in the brain is activated. Boom! The reward is a response to that activity that will release dopamine. The release of this neurotransmitter feeds the brain with information to focus on the activity and give it even more attention. Then it gets registered in your memory, and this memory is so strong that forgetting it is quite frankly damn near impossible. And going forward from that time on, the brain will keep reminding you of that experience and will push you to relive that experience. This intrusive reminder is often called a craving. Initially, it starts by doing it in smaller quantities, tickle with a feather, and eventually the brain will keep demanding more, pounding with a hammer. And when the demands get stronger, your frequency of the performance of the activity and amount of the substance you take will begin to increase too. The more it demands, the more frequency and amount you use. Research shows that taking addictive agents habitually decreases the expression of dopamine receptors in the brain. That means your brain's ability to read what is pleasurable and feel good from it goes down. As dopamine receptor expression goes down, you begin to lose interest in the other activities you used to enjoy before taking the addictive substance. It's pretty common to start dropping out of these activities and replace it with more drinking or using. That means that as the addiction takes root, you will feel compelled to use more and use more often, but at the same time you literally will not enjoy other things as much as you used to. This is biology. It's in your brain chemistry. It's not about attitude or willpower. Chocolate, dinner with your best friends, listening to your favorite band, dancing, painting, going to the beach, playing golf, and even sex will matter less and less. Why? Because you won't get near the amount of pleasure from them as you used to. Spoiler alert, in recovery, this function in the brain will slowly repair and come back, so don't sell your boat or give up on dating. Just put that aside for a while and focus on getting better. It really does get better. So when someone depends solely, i.e. becomes dependent, on specific activities or substances to release dopamine, that is when we have an addiction. Although there's no single method of reversing the affected brain back to what it was before, the best place to start is to seek professional medical help. When you are in the treatment for addiction, you are essentially beginning a medically managed dopamine fast. Trying to do it on your own will likely drive you haywire, and believe it or not, it can actually be extremely dangerous. A medical detox not only helps keep you as comfortable as possible, it can also keep you alive. Withdrawing from substances like benzos and even alcohol can turn deadly very quickly, even for people who are otherwise relatively healthy. So please don't take chances. Get help. Yes, the struggle with addiction can be overwhelming, but recovery is possible and addiction is treatable. Seek medical advice and ask for help from people when you need it. It's better to share your problem now and get started working on a solution than to wait until it becomes an even harder and more damaging problem. Remember the saying, it takes a village. The reality is, you can't do it alone, and you don't need to. Get help now. The life that is waiting for you is so much better than you can even imagine. For more information on addiction and emotional health, please visit our blog at livebetterlivenow.com.